with her dad. She looks up and sees the stars, and she stops him and grabs a hold of his hand, and she turns to him and she says, "Daddy, if the wrong side of heaven is so beautiful, what must the right side be?" That's the question she was asking. If the wrong side is so beautiful, what must the right side be? She's asking a question about heaven, and she's probably wanting to know about the hereafter. Questions about life and death have been asked by man for eons. We've often wondered what's ahead of us, what's around us in the future. Even Job, who made this statement in probably one of the most ancient books in the Bible, is Job. And he asked the question himself, if someone dies, will they live again? And we seem to ask these questions over and over and over. I don't think anybody really knows exactly what's going to happen or what takes place in a great way. I really don't. Jesus really said very little about life after death. Did you know that? I wish he had been a little bit more with the particulars. I would like to have known a few things. He doesn't really expound a lot on the idea of a resurrection. He gives us some ideas, though. He told his disciples at one time, "In my Father's house are many rooms." That gives me the impression that it may be a very big place. And then there was the thief on the cross that he told him, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Which makes me think that maybe we're looking at a very, very nice place. A wonderful place. But then he also talks about the difference between heaven and hell in his parable with Lazarus and the rich man. You remember that story. It was just several weeks we talked about that. Don't you remember? Lazarus was in heaven and the rich man was in hell. And he said, "Father Abraham, send Lazarus to me, that he dip his finger in the water. Put it on my tongue, it's hot down here." So we get an idea that maybe there is a split between heaven and hell. I don't know. There's not much on it other than that. And if you think today you're going to get a sermon or a message about what things are really like there, you're wrong. I don't know. I probably know as much about it as you do. There's not really a lot I can say. And quite honestly, I'm a little bit leery of people who claim to know the furniture of heaven and the temperature of hell. I'd like to ask them where they got their information. But in today's scripture that we read, the Sadducees, not the Pharisees, but the Sadducees come to Jesus with a question. And they set the question up with a story. There was this woman, and she'd been married to 7 brothers, and all the brothers died, and there was no heir to the estate. And then she died. And their question to him is this: now then, at the resurrection, whose wife would she be, since she was married to all 7? Let me tell you this before we go too far into this. They really didn't care about the answer. This was almost a joke, poking fun at Jesus in some ways. Because you see, the Sadducees didn't believe in a resurrection. They didn't believe in a life after death. The main thing they were trying to do was to trip Jesus up a little bit. But thanks be to God, Jesus warranted an answer. That's one of the beautiful things about Jesus, that he always took the opportunity, regardless of the circumstances, to teach about his Father in heaven. And to give us some idea about him, the relationships and so forth. And he does that here to start with. And he answers their question, even though it wasn't a serious question with them. And they didn't believe in the resurrection. He answered it. And he states really that in the resurrection, there'll no longer be a marriage, is what he's saying, and be giving in marriage. Things will be different there. He goes on and says that in the resurrection, people will be like angels. I hope that's so. And he goes on to say that in the resurrection there'll be children of God. And I think that's important for us to remember. And he assures us it will stay that way. They will remain that way forever. That particular part of the answer that he gave those Sadducees is our hope And it should. It's a wonderful thing to think about, to contemplate in the future. It offers us hope for those that are living really sometimes in depressed situations, in the dark times in our lives. I think about those people with extended illnesses that are trying so hard just to get back to where they can live a normal life. But it seems like every time they turn around, they're having to go back to another doctor, or another problem seems to rise up. But they can be assured that in the resurrection, something to that point will not happen. Those things won't take place. This is for the future. I think about those who are caring for their loved ones in failing health, knowing full well that things probably are not going to get better. Dementia and Alzheimer's sneaks in on them. And they're watching as they dwindle away, but they can have the hope of a resurrection. And in time, things will change. I think about those that are desperately trying to put their lives together with a small paycheck and a no good dead-end job that probably will pay out in time. But they can be assured that things will be different down the road. I think that's important for us to understand. I think we need to understand the reality of this with the Sadducees story about the woman. She was kind of tossed around a whole lot, and things really didn't get better for her at all. But we find hope in Jesus' promise of the resurrection. That was his answer to the Sadducees and to us. But again, thanks be to God. He expounds on it. And he gives us another form of hope, another idea of hope. Jesus also offers us hope for today. And he told them, he is not the God of the dead, but of the living. For him, all are alive. I think that's wonderful news. I think that's something that you and I need to keep in our hearts every day of our lives. Because you see, we can live knowing that our God is the God of the living. He is with us now. He holds to us. And he claims us. And he loves us. We can live knowing that this God of the living sees us and watches after us today, in the now. Jesus offers us the promise of resurrection, not just for tomorrow, but brothers and sisters of Hermanville, for today. It's now. It's now. And I think that's important. We can live each day in the assurance that the resurrection is our hope, it is our strength, it is a promise given to us. And that we can know that God is not the God of the dead. I guess if I had to fold it up right now and stop at this point, the point I would like for you to get would be very much this. Our God is the God of the living, who dwells with us now and will dwell with us in the resurrection. We will be a part. If I wanted to fold this up now, I think we could do it with an illustration. I was looking through some of the commentaries and some other tools that I have, trying to find something that might close this up. Because I really don't know a lot about what takes place later in life. But I know what God offers us now. So there's a story that goes this way. Philip was born with Down syndrome. And he was a member of the 3rd grade Sunday school class at a certain church. And he went there with the other 8-year-olds in the class. He was never really accepted a whole lot. They weren't really mean to him, but they were just kind of standoffish with him. Because he was different. After Easter, the teacher brought to class with her a lot of those, you know, those legs, pantyhose things that you've seen before that are shaped like eggs. And she brought a lot of them into the class with her, and she sat them down, and she said, now I want you to take these eggs, and I want you to go out there in the yard, and I want you to find something that signifies life. And tell me why you picked it when you come in. So the children went out into the yard, and for a few minutes they were having a great time and all, and then they brought the eggs back in, and they laid them up on the table, and the teacher began to open them. She opened up one, and there was a beautiful flower. The little girl says, that's mine. She said that was a seed at one time, but now it's a beautiful flower. That's life. And the teacher said, that's good. She opened up another one, there was a huge green leaf in it. And the little boy says, that's mine. It's springtime, and when the leaves start turning green, we know that that means new life. And the teacher says, that's good. And then another one opens up an egg, and all of a sudden a butterfly flies out. And everybody oohs and ahs over the butterfly. And the little boy in the back said, that's mine. He said, that used to be an ugly caterpillar. But God can take life and change it into something beautiful. And the teacher said, wow, you children are really with it. Then she opens up one more egg. And it's empty. And the children get quiet for a moment. Somebody in the back of the room said, uh-oh, somebody didn't do their assignment. And another one says, yeah, it's empty. But about that time, little Philip walks up to the table and slams his hand down and says, that's my egg. That's my egg. And somebody said, oh, Philip, you never do anything right. And somebody else says, yeah, Philip, you were supposed to put something in it. And Philip said, I did do it right. I did do it right. He says it's empty because the tomb was empty. That's life. And the children thought for a few minutes. And they said, well, you know, Philip is pretty smart. 4 or 5 weeks later, Philip contracted an illness that most children would get over in just a day or two. But his little body wouldn't let him. And Philip passed away. They had a memorial at the church for him. And people came in and they started putting flowers on the altar. And the teacher thought it would be a good idea if the kids would come together. That third grade group would just come as a group. It might be a good idea. So they came in with the teacher and they sat in the pew in front of her. And then all of a sudden they all get up and they walk to the front of the church there, to the altar. And they pull out their eggs. And they lay them on the altar. And they open them up. And do you know what was in them? Nothing. That's life. We are assured that God is with us now and later in our lives and in our death as we cross over. And we will always be reminded by Jesus' answer that day when he says, he is not the God of the dead. He's not the God of the dead, but of the living. For to him all are alive. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, will you share a prayer?